Wow, wow, wow. That's all we can say, Mark. What a week. Week 13, the penultimate week. 7 of the top 20 teams losing, and some real doozies. A couple teams now are no longer in the hunt officially, I believe. But wow. I mean, if I go back a year ago to week 13 of the regular season, uh, probably didn't watch a whole lot of games because it probably didn't matter a whole bunch. But this year, tons at stake. Tons at stake heading into this final week, week 14.
This is, Andy, this is why what they did with the playoff was great for the sport, because to your point, every week now is a playoff game. There is no, oh, that's a nice game, we should view that game. They all have implications. Like yesterday, the madness continued.
I know. How about it? We'll talk about some of those games, I'm sure. But Bama, Ole Miss, Colorado, keep going down. A&M,
Indiana.
Indiana. I mean, down the list, top teams that were. It's interesting because it usually on Sundays when I'll do a longer exercise routine, and I typically listen to a lot of podcasts. And I had for a short while there, I had boycotted our boys over at game day after the Florida State decision. That didn't sit well with me, and I've gotten back to getting over that, and all is forgiven, I guess. But I typically will listen to they record, I think, 3 in a week. So they'll do a Tuesday, a Thursday, and then they pick games Friday. But I always like listening to the prior, like the lead up to yesterday, their podcasts and just what they're talking about, and then the games they pick, and you kind of listen to it after the Saturday has unfolded. But yeah, they were talking about I think the show on Wednesday was all about the mess that was being created in the SEC. And it was a mess. You and I talked about that last week, but I think we had 5 or 6 teams that were 2 losses, and lots of this team beat that team, but that team beat this team, and that team, the ABC rule. And but I think the process of natural selection is going to sort a lot of this stuff out, right? The Big 12's another one after yesterday's games we'll talk about, I'm sure, this week. But I just have a feeling in the last week here, I think there's still going to be some stuff the committee's going to have to sort through that's going to be sticky, but I think some of these are going to sort themselves out naturally. But wow, yeah, what a week.
Yeah, very chaotic, but you know what? Good stuff. Everyone's talking about it. There's no such thing as bad publicity, and it's exciting, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's get into our recap. Who made your good list as we head into the holiday season? We'll talk about the naughty list here after that, but the good list. It was hard for me to. I've got like three games on here, 3 teams, but I'll let you kick it off and see how many duplicates we have. But lots to pick from this week, I think.
Andy, there were a lot of great games. I guess it all depends on what side of the coin you're on.
Yeah.
Let's take the first game, which is the Florida Ole Miss game in the Swamp, right? What's his name was hurt, the quarterback for Florida. He's heavily taped ankle.
Yeah.
Wasn't extremely mobile, but he's a pocket passer anyway. He's a big kid, 6'5", 225. Florida held their own, and at the end of the game, Dart made mistakes that two of them, right, that lost the game. But you know what? It was a great game, and Florida has 2 top 10 wins in a row, I think. They beat LSU. Now they beat Ole Miss. And to your point, that may have been the knockout blow for Ole Miss because it was their 3rd loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Napier, if there were any questions about him saving his job, he just did that yesterday. But
absolutely.
Yeah, Ole Miss is 4-3 now. So they're definitely on the outside looking in,
I would think Nebraska, you've been talking about Nebraska from week 0. And you've been talking about what a great coach Rule was when he was at Baylor, and he got the shaft in the NFL, and he's going to rebuild this program like Tom Osborne knew he could. And they've done a wonderful job, and they won in a great game, right? And
Yeah.
then me and you talked about Illinois, the season that they're having.
Did you see
They
that finish? How
Right.
about that finish?
Oh my God, what a barn burn at the end. The guy scores a touchdown on the last play of the game to beat Rutgers. It
Yeah, I
was
don't
just
know.
phenomenal.
Did you watch any of that game?
I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so if you look at the highlights, I read the recap
Uh,
yesterday or late last night, and then I watched the highlight this morning. And what I didn't pick up on was um, um, Illinois was going for the go ahead, or I think was it the tie or the go ahead field goal, and I think it was a 57 yarder, 58 yarder, I think, and I think he had the wind at his back. But just as he kicked the ball, Rutgers called a timeout in an attempt to ice him. But the kicker got the kickoff, and it wasn't even close. And Bielema and the coaching staff saw that and were like, "Yeah, we're not trying that again." So they had they not called the timeout and iced the kicker would have missed the field goal and game probably over. But
right.
he saw that, got the
Change the
fortune,
play?
yeah, and basically said, yeah, we're not going to kick the field goal. We're going to go for it on fourth down, and ran this play. It's called apparently the play is called church, is what it's
No
called. And
way.
I
Like the
assume
Hail
that
Mary?
yeah, I assume it's I don't know what I'll have to do some research as to why it's called church, but the wideout who caught the ball, um, Pat Bryant, I think was the wide receiver's name, but as he catches the ball or whatever receiver is is getting the ball thrown to him in that play, the whole idea is for them to catch the ball and then go to the ground to set up the field goal. And I guess at the last second, he saw that he had open field and just ran. And so the play, how it ended in the touchdown, is not how the play is supposed to
Really?
work. He's supposed to go down and set up for the field goal. But yeah, what a finish that was, man.
And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Andy, late at night in the midnight hour, 4
Yeah.
overtimes, Texas A&M is about to win the game on a 2-point conversion, and the Reed drops the ball.
It was unbelievable. Well, that would have tied it. Actually, I
Oh,
think that
hide
would
it,
have tied it up.
hide it. Okay.
I think it was the second round. So starting in the third overtime, they go to 2-point conversions. Each team gets a crack.
Mhm.
They were both successful in third overtime, and in the fourth overtime, Auburn scored first on the 2-point. And then yeah, I saw that highlight. I read through the box score and the recap, and like that's just the recap that the site that I look at just gives you the verbiage of, Reed threw the ball or the quarterback threw the ball to Reed and it was incomplete. But when I watched the highlights, I had no idea he dropped that ball in the end zone. And that was a catchable ball. Feel
So
bad for that kid. You feel terrible because that's their playoff spot right there, man.
that's another team that now has 3 losses.
Yeah, they're done. They won't be in it.
So we should talk later in this show about that SEC bunch up, because however this plays out next week, there may be one 3-loss team that
Yeah,
could get in from strength of schedule. What about
that
you,
is
Andy?
that
What good did you have?
That is a possibility. Well, you and I had both had the Fighting Illini in the big win over Rutgers. I also had couldn't help myself but to put the Auburn game on there. But how about Rock Chalk Jayhawk, man? I mean, a shout out to the Jayhawk fans who the first half of the season were wondering where is Jaden Daniels and this team that a lot of people had picked to win the Big 12 were just totally absent, and they have just mowed down the top of the Big 12 the last 3 weeks, my friend. 3 weeks in a row. Iowa State, BYU at BYU, and now Neon Dion in the Buffs.
I
So
think this is the first time ever a 6-loss team has had 3 top 10 or 3 top 15 wins in a row,
unbelievable,
or
man.
ranked teams.
I watched that game too. I didn't watch it from start to finish, but I watched the majority of it. And the stats show this too. I mean, I highlight this will be highlighted later on, but Kansas just ran all over the Buffaloes. Their offense was dominant. I'll tip my hat to them later. But the other thing, so two things for me that and I'll touch on this as we get to our next section. Let's just transition there, because that was the last. To your point, depends on what side of the coin you're on. That was the good side of the coin. The bad side of that same coin. The quote that I had is, and I don't know if this is from an actual song. I couldn't pull it out of my memory bank, but I got Dallas on my mind. It's all I could think of. Neon Dion, thinking about Dallas and whether he was going to go play for the title or he's going to be head coach there next year, and with his son under center. But boy, the Buffaloes really blew a chance there. And the thing it showed to me was they're still a very one-dimensional team, man.
Yeah, there's no
I think
run game.
they only had at the end. I think it was well in, maybe midway through the fourth quarter. I shut it off, and I had something last night, hockey game that I went to. But at that time, I think it was about 6:12 left in the game, and the stat flashed up on the screen. They had 38 yards of rushing.
Yeah.
Buffalo did. I mean, so just still very.
They
Although they made improvements, still very one dimensional. So my bad for the week is Neon Dion, and for me, he's been pretty inconsistent this year. It seems like every time I've jumped on his wagon and picked him, they disappoint. But
So you're good. So you're good, and your bad was the same game
Same,
with two
yeah,
flips,
that's
which
right.
is
Yep.
which is kind of ironic because my bad was that game, was Colorado couldn't stop the run, couldn't run the ball, and they got blown off the ball.
Yeah.
To your point, Kansas blew them off the ball, and Kansas deserved to win.
Yeah.
But my second bad of the day. And you know what? Me and you were hyping this game up. I wanted Signetti to win, but you talk about mistakes and you talk about where they were. The punter gets hit in the hand with the ball. He drops the ball, and they get the ball on the 5-yard line. They punch it in. Then they punt, and the guy takes back a punt 75 yards.
Yeah, I know.
They
Special
made
teams.
too many mistakes.
I was texting my uncle and my cousin and my brother just about. We've got a text chain, but usually on Saturdays it gets lit up with various games. And my thought was the difference in that game would be the quarterback that blinked first, and Rourke seemed to blink first, had more mistakes, missed balls, poorly thrown balls before Howard did. And then the third phase of the game, special teams, and that clearly was a difference maker. So,
yeah, that was the bad. I feel bad for them. They're still 10-1. Andy, when we talk in the next couple of weeks about this playoff, I don't know. Right, we're talking about a 3-loss team, maybe being the 12th guy to get in. And now we're talking about a 1-loss team because their strength of schedule. They haven't played any ranked opponent but OSU.
That's right.
They didn't even get in.
That's right. Yeah, they were prior to that game. They were the only team in the top 12 that had not played a ranked opponent. And I believe, if my stats are correct, I don't believe they played a team with a winning record.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. So, and I think their strength of schedule, I believe, was around 109th or 108th in the country. So, there were 30 other teams that had weaker schedules out of, roughly 140 teams. But, so it'll be interesting to see what shakes out with them. And we'll have to do some more research on the actual process. My understanding is they rank groups. So they'll take probably the top 3 champs from the power conferences, kind of the obvious pick. So, if Oregon wins out, Oregon we'll talk about this later, folks, in our next segment, but depending on conference champs, but kind of those that are automatically in, and then they start to take groups of like the next 3 or I think the next 6 teams that are next in the rankings outside of kind of the obvious, outside of the Power 4, the conference champs, the next 6 teams, they'll take those and then they'll rank the top 3 in that group. And then the 3 that are left over, then they add those to the following. They go through this iterative process of ranking groups. And what the folks at the specialists at game day were talking about is if IU gets jumbled up in that mess of group rankings, there are going to be a lot of SEC teams that are going to be in that same iterative process. And so you're going to have IU, who hasn't played anybody. They played an average Michigan team, beat them at home, got waxed by Ohio State, a contender, a clear playoff team. And then you're going to have them going up potentially against in the mixer with some of these 2-loss SEC teams or maybe 1 or 2 Big 12 teams. So be quite interesting.
Yeah,
We'll
and
see.
that's what I asked you last week. There's no clear-cut formulaic process like there is in the NCAA for the basketball, where they do the strength of schedule, the quad one wins, and they do all of those things. They're going to have to develop this.
That's right. Absolutely.
Happens, right?
They have to, yeah. And I think every Tuesday when they do the rankings, I know and ESPN, hosts those, but I think Reese Davis is continuous every time they've got the committee chair on. They're asking that same question, like, what are you going to do about tiebreakers? Because you inevitably are going to have those. So anyhow, but moving on.
Ugly, Andy. Who's your ugly?
Ole Miss, man. You know what? Like Lane Kiffin is such a genius from an offensive standpoint. He is probably one of the more entertaining college football coaches we have. Seems to garner, pretty good rapport with his players, and yet he still can't find a way to get his team across the line. These games, a Kentucky game at home and at Florida, you got to win these games. Like they're games you should win, right? There's games they should have won. So for me, that game, losing to Florida in the swamp, taking nothing away from Florida, they played a heck of a game. But Jackson Dart's the final 2 drives, having 2 INTs to finish that game. Again, you feel bad for the kid, but in those big moments, you got to deliver. And they're now a 3-loss SEC team, and they've lost to Kentucky and Florida, not to SEC powerhouses. So I suspect their playoff hopes were dashed yesterday in the swamp.
So, Andy, another train wreck, just like what you said, except it's Alabama.
Oh, yeah. Well,
3
I'll get to them next. Wow. Yeah.
Who did those 2? He threw 3 interceptions.
Yeah, 3 picks.
3 picks, right?
3 picks, yeah.
And that game was a disaster for them. They looked horrible. Oklahoma, of all people who've had a horrible season, they got to be in our mix. And next week, when we talk about the most disappointing teams of the season, the surprise teams of the season, Oklahoma's got to be in that batch of disappointment. And they beat Alabama badly.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oklahoma's 2-5 in the SEC. So Auburn's 2-5. So A&M lost to, at the time, a 1-5 team. Bama lost to a 1-5 team yesterday. Kentucky's 1-7, right? And their only victories over Ole Miss at the SIP. And Florida is 500. They're at 4-4, right? So, yeah, that game.
That was an ugly game.
It was. Well, that made it to my fugly list.
Really?
Believe it or not, it sure did. Yep. I had Bama losing Oklahoma 24-3, and I suspect they just eliminated themselves from the playoffs too. But yeah, just a dismal performance. They had a single field goal, which happened in the first quarter of the game, held scoreless the last 3 quarters of the game. Milrose 11 of 26 for 126 yards and 3 INTs. The winning quarterback threw for 68 yards. But the 2 backs, Jackson Arnold and Xavier Robinson for OU, both of them had 100-plus yards on the ground, which was the difference maker. And the Sooners had over 260 yards rushing. But, that game to me that got my fugly just 24-3. Bama scoring 3 points. And, again, huge implications going into that game and even bigger ones coming out. So
Andy, fugly yesterday, Army Notre Dame, right? Army just couldn't live up to the hype. Notre Dame outclassed them, beat them at their own game, rushed all over them, and they just outclassed them. And then I don't know if you caught the Michigan game.
Yeah.
Michigan beat
Ooh.
Northwestern 56-3.
Yeah, they dominated them. I don't know if it was 56-3. I thought it was 50-6.
Ah, 50 to
5-0. Then they put 50 up on Northwestern. Bit of a shocker.
So those are my fuglies for the week. I mean, just two car wrecks you just couldn't watch.
Yeah. So the Army Navy game, or the Army Notre Dame game you talked about, Bryson Daly, who had now lots of questions. I think he missed a game, very late call, against, who were they playing? UAB or somebody at home, but late call to not have him play, and turned out he had an injury. But he only had 26 yards in the air. He's 4 of 8. He did have 150 on the ground, so he used his legs a bit, but and 2 tutties, so he scored both of their touchdowns. But yeah, they just were not as dominant. And boy, you got to talk about the Irish sitting at 10-1. Of course, that one is a big black eye that they got from Northern Illinois the second week of the season or whatever that was. But ever since then, they've been rolling, man. So probably not a team that you want to face heading into the playoffs, I wouldn't think.
No, so that was the week that was, and you know what, Andy, I'm glad you brought that up, because you've said from the very beginning that college football, the landscape is mimicking the NFL. And we've talked about it from a coaching perspective, from an NIL perspective. We've talked about it from a front office GM perspective.
Yeah.
And now what you're saying is it's like a crapshoot, like the NFL. You get into the tournament and the hottest team is going to win, not the best team, like the 2008, whatever it was, Giants, right? They ran the table. They beat the 218, right? And then they beat the 18-0 Patriots. Who is the Giants to beat the Patriots 18-0, right? So this is shaping up to be a fulfillment of what your vision was. This is very NFL like.
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly there is a lot more. Well,
parallels.
Yeah, I don't know if I was thinking of the word parity, but I guess in the macro sense, there's probably less parity, just because the big are getting bigger and the small are struggling. But I just think, again, I'll say it again, but this college football season has been one of the best that I can remember. And the fact that we have, and we'll talk about it when we get to our picks, but we have several games that have huge implications in week 14. Like, I've always remembered the Saturday of college football after Thanksgiving. Huskers, Hawkeyes, got to watch it, right? Auburn, Alabama, got to watch it, right? Some of the key rivalry games, big games, you watched it. Very rarely was there a game that you had to tune in for that was any good. This week coming up, we probably got a half dozen.
Yeah.
So, but so those were the games. But how about handing out some awards, individual or team performances, offensive side of the ball? What'd you have, Mark?
Andy, we touched upon this game earlier on how the Buffaloes got beat up. There was a one-man wrecking crew, and his name was Devin Neal. 36 carries, 207 yards, 80 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. This guy beat them by himself.
Yeah. Well,
what do you have?
I had the same one.
See? He was the shining light of the week.
I had two. But
what was your honorable mention?
I had 2. So I added. So I had Kansas. I noted Kansas. They had 520 yards of total offense against Colorado. So they, like you said, they were all over them, ran all over them. And then you gave the stats for Neal. 4 tutties. So huge game against Colorado. He wasn't that much of a force against BYU. I think he had maybe 70 yards on the ground, but he had 116 against Iowa State. So he's been a key piece of their offense. But boy, the other big game, Georgia. I don't know if you caught this score, but Georgia State winning over Texas State.
No.
52-44.
Woo.
96 points. And then how about this kid, this QB for Georgia State, Christian Velu. That's right, Velu, French last name. He's from Ontario, 6'5", 210. He's 15 of 26 for 286 yards and 3 tutties.
Wow.
So very good showing for Velu. I wonder how that works out. Velu down in Georgia State. Like, I like to see the pronunciations of that name down there. Although probably down in Baton Rouge and maybe if you moved a little further west over to Louisiana, they might be able to pick up on that. But yeah, Georgia State, which is a big win. Texas State heading into that game, they would have been at 7-4, I think, coming out of that and contending for the conference. And Georgia State, I believe, I think they're now 4-7 maybe or 3-8. But that was the only other one I had on the offensive side. Defensive side of the ball.
You know, Andy, I watch this defense every week, and I've given them multiple awards. I think they're the number one defense in college football. Ohio State just played well. There's only one thing that gets me. Their cornerback, number one, every time this guy gets flagged for a hold, and he leads, I think, the nation.
Yeah. I
In
think it's what's his name? What's his name? It's like
he it's an African name.
I think so. Yeah.
Not Nigeria, but I watched him. He holds on every play.
He had, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Keep talking.
Number one, and the receivers in Indiana were complaining the whole game. I saw 3 flags on him in the first half. Supposedly he leads college football in pass interference calls, but their run defense is the best, and I think overall Ohio State is ranked number one now. You'll know better than me, but I believe so.
Yeah. So so the player that we're talking about here is Igbinosun, Davison Igbinosun out of Union, New Jersey, cornerback. Yesterday I watched the first half of that game yesterday, and then I had to run out to do some stuff at halftime. And by the time I got back, the game was pretty much over. I think it was 35-7 or 28-7. But yeah, in the first half, this kid, he had 3 penalties, and they said the same thing after his first one. They said he is one of the highest flagged defensive players, not the highest in the country. And then he had 2 subsequent ones to that. And again, both of them were the ones I saw were both PIs, you know.
Could you look at his high school? Did he go to Union Catholic? Because they are a powerhouse in New Jersey.
Yeah,
they have his profile from high school. Union Catholic is a big one.
Yeah, let's see where he went. High school, Union High School.
Yeah. No, that's not Union Catholic.
No, yeah, Union High School, or it says Union High School. I don't know if it's
Union Catholic or what. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is. They noted that yesterday, but
they did, right? But he's got a lot of physical tools, but he was cheating. So he held quite a bit. Who did you have for defense?
Well, and back to your question, yes, Ohio State does have in terms of average yards per play given up, Ohio State leads the nation. You want to take a guess at who was number 2 yesterday of all the teams that played?
It wasn't Penn State because they barely beat Minnesota, and they beat them by 1, and they usually have a good defense. I'm not sure. Who was it?
Hoosiers.
No. They gave up 38 points, Andy.
Indiana, go look at their record though. So Indiana, if you look at the stats, Indiana has all season has been battling until yesterday Miami for having the highest average points per game. They both were hovering around 48 points a game.
Yeah.
And on the defensive side of the ball, the Hoosiers were giving up just over 4 yards per play. heading into yesterday's game. But
Wow.
that average and that stat clearly got blown out of the water last week. Well, my hat would I'd have to tip my hat off to that Oklahoma defense. Oklahoma just shut down Bama, right?
Yeah.
3 interceptions on Milrow. It's not an easy thing to do, but they managed it. That to me was the defensive performance of the week. So, well, I can't. I know you can plug your ears while I say this, but I cannot round out this week without tipping the hat to the Seminoles. 41-7 over Charleston Southern. And how about this quarterback? Kromenuk, 209 yards, 3 tutties, man. But the Seminoles finally this season looking like the Seminoles we thought they would, despite the fact it was against a 1-11 team.
There you go, Andy. There you go.
Yeah. So anyhow, well, that's the week 13, folks. So we'll move on. Next up, we are going to talk about a couple things. Main topic we're going to talk about, Mark, is conference races. Who we think is going to end up winning the big conferences. We got 6 we're going to look at. We'll talk about those, and then we got a couple interesting things. One of which I hit on earlier, but talk a little bit about the potential of Neon Dion. Does he stay? Does he go? And then how about this 5-star QB commitment who flipped from LSU to Michigan this week because he got offered over $10 million. So we'll be right back with that, folks, in just a bit. Hang tight. Hey, yo, there we are. Big 6, Mark. Who's going to win it all? That's the big question. And I think pretty much on that screen, out of the 6 conferences we have listed, so folks that are listening, not viewing, which you are missing out, but so be it. At least you're listening. But you can catch us at all your major podcast outlets that are out there, and catch us on YouTube. For those that haven't liked us or subscribed, please do so. We want to keep making the millions we're making to fund this high level production operation we got going here. As you can see, Mark and I are filming out of respective dining or living rooms, but 6 conferences: Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC, AAC, and the Mountain West. So, Mark, I think out of those 6, one I think pretty clear. In the Big 10, we know who that winner is going to be. They've already secured themselves a spot into the conference championship title game, the Ducks out of Oregon. But who do you think they're going to end up playing in the Big 10? And who do you think wins the Big 10 championship?
Andy, this team has played 5 top 10 games this season. They are battle tested. They've lost to Oregon, but they're going to win it. OSU, time has come. And I think that you saw that this week. They didn't panic. They played their game. They lost their center to an ACL, next man up. There's so much talent. They coached a good game. I think that this is their year. As much as Oregon, last man with the ball, won the first time, I think this OSU defense is going to have something for them. And I'm not so sure that this will be the last game these 2 teams play. So I'm calling OSU as my Big 10 winner.
Wow. Okay. Heard it from the man himself. He's taking the Bucks. I've got the Ducks. I'm going to go with the Ducks over the Bucks. I think this is Oregon's year. I think Lanning's got that team dialed in, and presuming they stay healthy, they've all been playing together throughout the season. And I think this year will be the opposite or the inverse for Oregon. Last year, if you recall, they played Washington in the regular season and lost a nail biter, and the same thing happened in the Pac-12 championship. And I think the same thing happens to the Buckeyes this year. I think Oregon is just going to be too good for them. But you called it, man. Even with the two-loss Ohio State team, they likely get in somewhere around the edges. And how about it, man? These teams playing 3 times in one season. Tough to beat a team twice. Probably even more difficult to beat them 3 times in a given year, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think Oregon ends up winning the Big Ten. So we got the vote for Oregon and OSU. Most likely, both are playoff teams. Next up, Big 12. What do you think here, man? This one is wide open. Super interesting.
I think the title game, Andy, is going to be Iowa State and ASU.
How about ASU? You know, ASU, guess where they were picked in the Big 12 starting the season?
10th.
Dead last.
Dead last.
Dillingham and the boys were expected to finish dead last in the Big 12. So hats off to the 34-year-old phenom out there. He's done a great job.
And they are guaranteed a spot in the championship game.
After last night's victory, I believe so.
So it's just a matter of who they will play. Well,
they got to beat. They still got to beat Arizona, which again, those rivalry games.
Yep.
Anything can happen.
That's true, but I'm struggling here whether it's going to be Iowa State or ASU as my Big 12 champion. But I got to go with Shotgun Steve on this. And Iowa State, I called it in the beginning of the season. I can't back off now. Yeah. I think that they're going to come out of this thing and they're going to prevail. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, I think the Cyclones are going to win the Big 12. I do think I think Arizona State is going to. I think they play at Arizona, which could be a little dicey, but I think they've got momentum and energy. I think they win that game. I don't think they lose. If they lose, then it throws the Big 12 wide open once again, right? Because they'll be a 3-loss team, and assuming Colorado and potentially BYU went out, then you'll have to pick between those two, which I think the nod would go to BYU, I believe. But I think the Cyclones are going to win the Big 12. Again, tip of the hat to Shotgun Steve. I wasn't a huge believer. I did not pick them in the Cyhawk game. They won a nail biter, and I've had a losing record when picking against the Cyclones. So I think they are going to end up playing for the title. And I think I was just looking this morning if it is an ASU Iowa State matchup, and I just think Iowa State's going to have too much on the offensive side of the ball, and I think ASU will be a great story. I think you have a ton of people rooting for them. They'll be the Cinderella, but I think in that game, I think skill is probably going to be too much on the Iowa State side of the ball. So we shall see, my friend. Next one up, man, big one, SEC. This one is really interesting, my friend.
This one, Andy, is as the worm turns. Every week there's a different turn, whether it's Texas A&M, whether it's Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. I think this week Georgia put themselves in a position to, I think that they're definitely going to play in the game. Now it's a matter of whether it's Texas or Texas A&M. And to your point, that will be decided next week in that great matchup. But I think Kirby and the boys are going to pull this thing out, and they're going to be the representative from the SEC in terms of the championship. So
who do you think they play? Who do you think they'll play?
That's something that we're going to share later on in the show, because that will be a Texas A&M.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't give you that answer now. Let the viewers know for later on, Andy.
Who's going to win the SEC? Georgia or the other team?
Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia is going to not only get in, they're going to win, and they will be the representative of the championship for the SEC.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they're poised.
Okay.
You?
Okay. Yeah, I think although we'll get to it later, I think it's going to be. I think the SEC championship is, which I'll probably tip my hat a bit, but I think it's going to be a rematch. I think you're going to see Georgia and Texas, and Georgia dominated that last game they played together. I mean, they absolutely manhandled Texas. Again, very hard to do that twice in a season. So, I think I still think at the end of the day, though, I think Kirby Smart and the boys, they're just battle tested. They've gone deeper into the seasons. They've had to play more big games than Texas, and I think Georgia does win the SEC at the end of it. But I think it's going to be a literal and figurative dogfight to the end for them to do that. So next, another interesting conference here, the ACC. What's going to happen here?
Andy, this is, we talked about a few weeks ago, this whole mess in the SEC, and now you have something very similar where Clemson could try to sneak in. Unfortunately, my Pittsburgh team fell by the wayside. We both thought Miami would be the representative because they have the best player in college football, or the guy having the best season, like we've been talking about, Cam Ward. Their defense is really, how many lives could they have, right? 4 games they should have lost, and they got out of 3 of them.
Yeah.
This is a team that you're the one that's been beating the drum other than Clemson. And you said, Mark, we got to watch out for this team. They're coming. They're coming. They're coming. And sure enough, the Mustangs are coming. Andy, they're not coming. They've already arrived, right? They're here. They're here. And one stat that I could not believe was that when they signed this deal to get into the ACC, they told the ACC, if you let us in, we will not take a dime of ACC money for 9 years.
Wow.
And like we talked about, they don't need anyone's money.
Yeah, down there they don't.
They got the oil barons backing, and these people got more money than God. And they were picked to be last in the ACC, and they're going to win it. And I think that I don't know who they'll play. You will know better than me, but they will win because of their defense, and they will win because this quarterback that was not even the starter in the beginning of the year, Stone was their starter, and they put this kid in, and it looks like a different team with him.
Yeah, genius move by the head coach. Yeah, exactly. Well, they're 7-0 in the conference, and they're 10-1 overall, and they're rolling into the conference championship game. But SMU, Clemson, Miami, all at the top, right? SMU's undefeated. Yeah. SMU plays Cal. Not an easy game.
Yeah.
Clemson's got to get past the Gamecocks. South Carolina.
I've been calling them like they're giant beaters, these Gamecocks. I love them.
I know, and people say they're the most dangerous 3-loss team in the country right now.
Yeah.
Miami's traveling to the Cuse. 8-3 Syracuse team. Not a cakewalk either.
That's right. I wouldn't put anything over on Cuse, man. They got you love that quarterback, and he's had a hell of a season, and they're big game, Syracuse. So let's see.
Yeah. So, boy, this is it's a tough one, but because if Clemson and Miami both win, SMU loses, you've got 3 1-loss teams in the conference. And I don't think they've played head to head. I know SMU has not played. They've not played Miami. That's certainly for sure. And I don't think they played
Clemson either.
No, yeah. So
is there a tiebreak scenario there?
There's got to be somewhere. Yeah, I don't know how they'll decipher that. But they play at home against Cal. So I've got SMU. I'm taking SMU in the title game.
Me too. Yeah.
And then, boy, really tough call on this matchup. These other 2 matchups between Clemson and Miami. I'm gonna say SMU. I'm gonna say SMU finds a way. They find a way to get to. They're gonna make the championship game, and then I don't know, man. I don't know about this. I'm trying to get this pulled up. I don't know why my computer's kind of jacked here. I'm trying to check out the schedule of where I think Clemson is at. I don't know if they're on the road against South Carolina. But I don't know. I'm going to say SMU is going to play Clemson. I think the Cuse they may nip the Canes, and I think I've got on my sheet. I've got SMU winning the ACC. So we'll see. I think that conference could be, that and the Big 12 are going to be very interesting this weekend, right? This upcoming weekend, lots at stake. So I'll take the Stangs winning out the ACC and their debut in that conference. Next up, AAC, American Athletic. What do you think here, Mark? We'll have two one-loss teams in Tulane and Army facing off in this title matchup.
Andy, it's been very disappointing. I know you're a big service academy guy. I really thought it would be Army Navy. They looked so good for most of the year. It was so exciting. I said to you, could you believe they're going to actually maybe play 3 times?
Yeah.
They'll play in the championship. They'll do the Army Navy game, and then we might even see them in the playoffs. It's unheard of, and
Yeah.
talked. Very disappointing. I think the Green Wave is going to beat Army, and the Green Wave will win, and they will be the representative in the playoffs.
Oh, wow. Well, it'll be a battle, right? Because they'll be facing up with the next conference we'll talk about, the Mountain West, and it'll be interesting to see if both of them get a bid. But yeah, so you got Tulane facing Army. Based on what I saw last weekend from Tulane, I'm taking Tulane to win that championship and win the AAC as well too. Be interesting to see who they will be compared to and be fighting for a vote. And that's probably the champion from the Mountain West. I suspect we have the same forecast here, but I've got the Broncos, Boise State winning that, and then you've the committee will have to decide potentially between Tulane and Boise State who gets the Group of 5 nom.
So let me ask you something, Andy. I do have Boise State as well. Are you telling me that Tulane and Boise State, if they both win their conference championships, they're not going to be one of 12?
No, potentially not. It's so they've got there's the top. You've got Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC, right? Those champions I think they get priority. The Power 4 get priority, and then there's a guarantee for a Group of 5 pick for the tournament. And the Group of 5 is everybody else. So if you're not in one of those conferences, you're part of all the other conferences, right? Including the Mountain West and the American Athletic. So depending on how the rest of these games play out, yes, there is a potential that one of those two teams could be left out, even though they both won their respective conferences.
So the Big 4 of 4 out of 12, Andy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have here 6 teams, and we're saying out of the 6, only maybe 5 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, we also know that these other conferences have multiple loss teams.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? That may not be at the level that the conference winners are, or may not be, I don't want to say at the level, but as deserving.
Yeah.
And now I want to turn your attention to, what about Conference USA that you've been beating the drum on? And what about, there's a Pac-12 this year. There's a 2-pack this year.
Yeah.
And there's a MAC that me and you've been going back and forth with Miami and Bowling Green.
Yeah.
And then obviously we talked about the Mountain West. So I like Liberty coming out of the Conference USA.
Yeah, they're 5-2 though.
They're 5-2. Okay, I like Washington State.
Jacksonville State 7-0. So Jacksonville State is leading the Conference USA, but they haven't been ranked, right? They haven't been ranked nationally,
Okay. What about the Pac-12? You got Washington State, the Cougars.
Yeah, well, the Cougs last weekend, they stepped on a rake and lost to New Mexico State, I believe it was. Not this past Saturday, but last weekend they lost, and they were rolling, and they were going to be one of the overall they're 8-3, and had they won last weekend, and they play Wyoming to finish off their season, which Wyoming is a 2-9 team, so they should win that game overall. But so Washington lost to Boise,
Yeah, yeah.
respectable loss. Then they lost New Mexico and Oregon State. They lost 41-38 yesterday. So, had they won those last two, they were for a bit there heading into that New Mexico game. They were going to be a bit of a Cinderella, because I was going to ask the same question. What do you do with, there's really no conference championship.
No.
It's just those two teams. So had Washington State finished 10-1, what happens with them? But luckily we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that.
And
So.
then I know that this is near and dear to Landon's heart. You have the MAC, where you have Miami of Ohio playing Bowling Green next week for the
Yeah,
championship.
that should be for the championship. Both 6-1. Ohio, the University of Ohio, or Ohio University, is 6-1 as well. But Miami has got the head-to-head over them, so I presumably they would get the nod.
Mm.
But yeah, so either one of these teams, this will be a knockout game, right? So we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, so I think you potentially could have Tulane and Boise State. I think Boise State gets the nod over Tulane, would be my feeling, just because they've been ranked higher. And in fact, I think in one of the recent, I think this past CFP projection, I think the Broncos were sitting at the 4th spot. I think so. I think Boise State probably gets in. The question will be how many multiple loss teams from those bigger conferences will they be able to justify putting ahead of Tulane? So we'll see, my friend. So, well, there you have it, folks, with kind of who we think is going to win the conferences. Just quickly as we wrap up our hot topics, Neon Dion, does he stay in Colorado or does he go? And if he goes, where is he going?
Andy, there's only two places the guy can go. He's either going to go and replace Norville in Florida State because they're a mess, and he's the guy to turn that program around.
Do you know his history there, though? Do you know his history at Florida State? I didn't realize this, but
I watched him almost win the Heisman there. The guy was returning kicks.
I know.
He was a dynamo.
But apparently he doesn't recognize Florida State. He claims he graduated from an HBCU.
No, did he not graduate in the 3 years that he was there?
I don't know if he graduated from Florida State and he just left and got drafted. I think he got drafted. He left early.
He did,
and then he ended up finishing his degree later.
Somewhere else. That could be.
Yeah, but
Grambling?
He doesn't. So
where was it? Grambling?
I think that might be the case.
Eddie Robinson, remember him? All-time winningest coach.
Yeah. Yep. He's since passed on, huh?
He has. He was 90, I believe, or 95.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he claims that let's see, I've got him at Florida State. It says alma mater. I'm just, of course, flipping through stuff here, but he played at Florida State 85-88.
Yep, 3 years.
Yep. Selected by the Falcons in the 89 draft, 5th overall. College career, of course, got all the stuff about it. People always forget he played. He was pretty decent in the MLB too, man.
He was great for the Braves. He played in the World Series the same day he played in the playoff game for Dallas, I think.
Yeah.
No. He played a football game, and then they put him in a helicopter and played in the World Series, the Atlanta game against the Minnesota Twins. It was unbelievable. The guy was stealing bases.
Phenomenal athlete, man. Just a phenomenal.
Yeah, the two greatest athletes, pure athletes that I've ever seen were Dion and Bo
Jackson.
Bo Jackson. And Bo Jackson was just so strong, so fast. You just knew he was just better than you.
Yeah, for sure. And then Jordan he wasn't as good at baseball, right? On the hard court, but Yeah, I'd say Dion is certainly probably one of the best professional athletes of all time, man.
Yeah,
He was good in both, right?
he
But
was.
it says his alma mater is Talladega College, so who knows?
Is that
But
an HSB?
I don't think so. HBCU, I don't believe so.
HBC?
Yeah. So, anyways, but it's like this weird, complicated relationship, and I think Norvell is still owed. I think it's like $63 million. So
Wow.
if they got to pay him out on that, then do they have enough money to get Dion? So my feeling is I won't be shocked at all if he's on the Cowboys sidelines next year, and the Cowboys happen to draft Shador. So
Right.
that wouldn't shock me at all. So anyhow, we'll see. But I my guess is now he claims he's not going anywhere, but we'll see. Both his boys are leaving. Travis Hunter will be leaving. I mean that program will go from where it's at right now and being a potential contender to win the Big 12 to going back to what they were, I think, 2 years ago. And I'm not sure Neon wants to. I don't know if he's going to want to stick that out long enough to rebuild it again. So we'll see. But and then last bit, how about this this 5-star QB flipping from LSU to Michigan for $10.5 million?
I thought it was 12.
Is it 12? I think you're right. I did
What
hear
they
that.
finally settled on. But
Yeah.
Andy, this is what I said in the beginning of the year. This is everything that's wrong with college football, and you didn't have the same lens, and you told me You told me I was an old man to get off
with
the
it.
lawn, get with it.
Right.
And you know what? I don't like it, Andy. I don't like it.
Well, Bryce Underwood likes $12 million to go play in Michigan. He doesn't care what we say on the show. He's getting paid $12 million, man. I mean,
So is that 12 million over 4 years, 3 million a year?
I don't know
What happens after he leaves after the second year? Does he still get the money, Andy?
Yeah, exactly. Is it
Pay to play?
is it guaranteed? Does he have to stick around for a period of time? I'm guessing there's got to be strings tied to it. This is why we talked about it earlier. I just think, again, this is where the NCAA could find itself relevant again, but they could get in the middle of this and figure out and start working on how you get to potentially collective bargaining and players union. But then you get the contracts, which again further steps us closer to the NFL. But if you're going to sign a $12 million deal with a school, I'm guessing the school is going to say, look, this much is guaranteed. The rest is based on performance. Hopefully a fair amount of it's, play for performance or pay for play, if you should, depending on how you perform. Your upside could be 12, but if you get hurt or you have a crappy year, you're not getting 12, right? We're paying you less. And then hopefully a fair amount would be back end loaded. You got to stick around at least 3 years, right? Or if you want to enter the draft, then you forego X amount. So I think there's a lot to be done in this space, and I think we'll see that evolve. But
yeah,
$12 million, my man, for a 18-year-old kid, like. It'd be interesting. Yeah, it'd just be interesting to see what happens. I mean, that kind of money, how he handles it, how Michigan handles it, because that it then creates the dynamic I think you have probably in the NFL when you've got locker rooms with these guys who are drafted in the top 5, the top 10, who have huge signing bonuses, and they're more, I suspect, more mature grown men in those locker rooms, but. Interesting dynamic with a $12 million quarterback in a locker room full of other 18-year-old kids who aren't getting jack squat. They just want a chance to put on the maize and blue and go play. So
Andy, I don't know if you saw Neon Dion went ahead and he took a 5-star quarterback away from your boys at USC.
Yeah, I did see that.
So how much money did he offer them? Right, not 12 million, or else it would have made the news. But
yeah,
guys got to get paid because USC was offering him. He's 5-star, man. He's a McDonald's All-American, 5-star. Right? There's only 10 of them.
Yeah.
Right? So it just goes back to what we were saying early on, and you're right. There's got to be some sort of regulation, collective bargaining, some sort of goalposts so that it's not the Wild West.
Yeah. They're saying that kid, Julian Lewis,
Yep.
1.1 million.
They're both 5 stars. Right? They're both,
Yeah.
you don't go any higher than 5. So you're telling me 1 5-star is 12 and the other 5-star is 1?
Yeah.
There's not that decorum in 5-star. If
Yeah.
you told me it was 12 and 8, 12 and 9, I would believe you. 12 and 1? Come on.
Yeah. Well, maybe Julian should have picked up the phone and talked to Harbaugh or somebody in Ann Arbor before he talked to Neon. So anyhow, but well, I think last thing we'll say on it, I think versus Sharon Moore in Michigan, good dude, but I suspect Dion has far more connections at the next level and just around the industry. So although you're not getting paid now, you do well, you're probably getting paid at some point, having played for Neon. So
Yeah.
all right, folks, so that wraps us up on the hot topics. We do have an extended show this week. It is our last regular season show. Post this, we will be getting into the Heisman talk, the postseason playoff talk. But we're now going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with the picks for our final week of the regular season. Hang tight. All right, everybody, we're back. Week 14, the final regular season week of college football. We do have a few games that will happen post that. Of course, the Ball Service Academy game, which will be on the 14th, Army Navy, and we'll have a pick for that. But this is the last regular season lineup, Mark, and boy, we have some matchups this week. We've hinted at some of them earlier, and last week, not a bad week, 13-7. So we were 6 games above 500, I guess, and there are 3 games above 500. And how about it? Heading into the last week of the season, my friend, the Senseis are tied up, each of us at 142 and 72. We've picked 142 winners, and we've missed 72 of the games, but we're in a dead heat through week 13. So it's all on the line this last week, my friend. Hope you have your picks thought out and you're ready to pick the winners.
I can't believe it's this close, Andy.
I know it's hard to believe after 13 weeks. And folks, yeah, we've got the spreadsheets and we track game by game. I got my master sheet here, and I'll have to go back and recount. Maybe we'll have to do a recount after this week's over, and we'll stay consistent with other counts that go on. But well, let's kick it off, man. Week 14. Let's start it off back in the American Athletic. Big game here. Memphis traveling to Tulane. Big implications. What do you think here, Mark?
I think Tulane's going to win it. I like Memphis. Memphis has had a great season. They've been very exciting, and I've talked to you all season long about all their games I've followed. But I think the Green Wave's going to get it done, and they're actually going to make the push for the playoff.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Tulane wins and find themselves in the championship game. Next up, Oregon State at Boise State.
Talk about one of the teams that's had a most disappointing 2024 season. The Beavers have played horribly. It wouldn't shock me that they let their coach go. Boise State's had a great season. Gentry is just going to be in New York for my birthday on the 14th. Whether he accepts that award or not, we shall see. But he will be a finalist in New York on Saturday, December 14th. So I like Boise.
Yeah, it's be an interesting game. I definitely think Vegas and a lot of the pundits are going to be picking the Broncos. Beavers are 5-6 on the year, so not terrible. Not Purdue terrible, if you will. But they have lost 5 of their last 6. So they beat Washington State this past weekend. They're at Boise. I'm going to take the Broncos too. I think Boise gets it done and secures themselves a spot, not only in the Mountain West Championship, but I think the playoff. Next one. Talk about a disappointing team. Oklahoma State traveling to Colorado. Still a big game, although the Buffalo's chances of making the Big 12 title game probably went out the window with the Jayhawks loss. But what do you think here, Mark?
I think Neon Dion is going to put his foot up their butt this week. He is not happy. They made him look bad, and they are at home. This is the last game at home for this team. This is the last hurrah for his two kids, or one of his kids, and the Heisman Trophy winner. So I think they win, and they beat Oklahoma State. Just what you said, Oklahoma State's been very disappointing. Wouldn't shock me if Gundy's gone after this season either.
Yeah. I'm gonna take Colorado at home. I don't think Oklahoma State's good enough. They're not really playing for a whole lot, right? I think Lou Holtz said it. You're either at this late in the season, you're either playing to win, playing for championships, or you're playing to spoil somebody's season, right? And neither of these things are really true in this game. So I'm going to take Colorado at home as well. Next one up, you alluded to this one. Probably, I'm guessing probably as I look at the biggest game on our slate, and I think probably the biggest game of the weekend, Texas at Kyle Field taking on the Aggies.
This could have been my T-shirt game of the week.
Could have been. Yeah, could have been.
But I took the old tradition because I'm an old school type of guy. This is going to be a great game, Andy. This is going to be a great game. And I think Texas just has too much on offense with this Golden guy that's just a great receiver. They got a great quarterback. He gets the ball out of his hands so quickly. They score a lot of points. I think Texas beats him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Texas wins this game. Tough loss for A&M. Dashes their playoff hopes. 4 overtime loss on the road at Auburn. I think tough to regroup from that. So I've got the Longhorns, I think, fairly convincingly overall. Well, our FCS, there isn't a whole lot, only 3 games on the slate for the FCS this coming weekend, but we're going to pick a classic HBCU matchup, and we've got Grambling taking on Southern. Again, another one of those games, always televised, always on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So our FCS game last week, we didn't fare so well. You and I both took the Crimson at home against the Bulldogs of Yale, and Harvard got beat by Yale.
I saw that game, Andy.
Yeah.
I saw that game, and you know what? Yale went up and down the field on them. Their quarterback, their wide receivers, they threw for a lot of yards. It was an exciting game. And, we both had Harvard, and that was a big miss.
Yeah. So what do you think in this game?
Isn't this the Eddie what's his name? Eddie, who's the coach of Grambling?
We just talked about that.
I think this is his memorial game. Eddie Robinson.
Yeah.
Eddie Robinson. I think this may be the memorial game.
Yeah.
To your point, they played every year, and I think Grambling's had a better year than Southern. They're going to put up more points. Southern's had issue getting points on the board. They've lost a few games. I think Grambling wins this one.
Okay. So Grambling, they're playing at Southern.
Yep.
Got, conference-wise, Grambling's 2-5. So they're 5-6 overall.
And what's Southern?
Southern 6-1.
Wow.
Sure you don't want to rethink that?
No, I'm going to go with Grambling.
Going Grambling. Okay. Well, this is where we divide.
Yeah.
This is where we divide. I'm going to take Southern in this one over Grambling. This could be the
one to win the championship, baby.
How would that be? How would that be if an FCS pick of the week puts me over the top by 1, or it puts you over the top by 1? That would be that'd be the ultimate for college football fans. But,
so let me ask you something. Didn't Southern lose to Florida A&M, Andy?
Let me get that real quick. Let's see. Their loss. No, they lost to well, that's Grambling. Let me just check here. I had Grambling's up. we'll see what. Let's see. Southern lost to. Wow, they so overall they are looks like they've got 4 losses on the season. They've lost to FAMU, Florida Atlantic. They've lost to Nicholls State.
51-7 in Nicholls State, bro.
Yeah, Jackson State and
Yeah.
McNeese.
And McNeese State.
Yeah, but they're 6-1 in the conference. So.
And what's Grambling's overall record, Andy?
5-6, 2-5 in the conference.
Yeah.
Southern 7-4. So
I'm taking the ghost of Eddie Robinson, my friend.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Next up, huge implication here. We talked about it. We alluded to it. Sun Devils. They're traveling to Tucson to take on the Wildcats, man. Big game here for all is on the line for the Sun Devils. Can the Wildcats upset them?
Tucson going to play spoiler alert in Tucson? I don't think so. Not so fast, my friend.
Yeah,
I like the Sun Devils.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think momentum is going to carry the Sun Devils. I think they win this game, and I'm not sure if they'll even get threatened, but we'll see. Next up, big MAC Conference Championship implications on the line here. The Red Hawks, Miami, traveling to Bowling Green up north. Miami from the south of Ohio, Bowling Green up north in Ohio. Big game. I'll have to ping Jennifer on this one. Her daughter's there at Bowling Green. So big rivalry game here. But Red Hawks taking on the Falcons. Winner does go to the MAC championship and will be determined who they play. Most likely Ohio, assuming Ohio wins their final game of the year. But what do you think here, Mark?
Mighty Falcons, baby. Mighty Falcons. I'm going Bowling Green.
He's going Bowling Green. I'm going to go Red Hawks. Red Hawks have found their way. They've been consistent, pretty much more consistent than I would have thought after that game. I watched them play against Cincinnati. But so I'm going to take Miami in this one, and Miami heads back to the MAC championship. They won it last year, and I think they'll have a repeat potential matchup with the Bobcats from Ohio. Next one up, ACC, big one here, Mark. We talked about it. Perhaps the most threatening 3-loss team in the country, South Carolina. So what I was looking for earlier, it's in the other Death Valley at Clemson.
Is that the Saturday night game, Andy?
Let's see what time they're. We'll have to check on that. See when they're.
That's got to be a primetime game, man. With those two teams,
I would think so, and with what is at stake for, particularly
Clemson.
for Clemson, yeah.
South Carolina is just a different team away from Columbia. I love him, and they've had a great season, and he's coached well, and he deserves whatever to stay on over there. He's building a program.
Now it's a noon kickoff.
Wow, another miss, right? You've been calling out these misses throughout, and this one is a miss. If it's going to be another noon, like the
you got Texas A&M is a night game, the big night game. Although NBC's got Oregon versus Washington.
Oof. That's a bad game.
Yeah, you think you'd figure out a way to get Clemson and the Gamecocks on. But anyways,
I like the Tigers. I think the Tigers are gonna win. They're at home, and they're gonna put pressure on SMU and put pressure on Miami and Syracuse, and that's all Dabo can do right now. Right. So I like the Tigers.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna take Dabo at home. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Clemson recognizes what they have at stake, and they're gonna win. They're gonna be victorious. Next up, Ramblin' Wreck taking on Georgia and Athens. Georgia Tech at Georgia.
Georgia Tech has been a spoiler this season. They always play Georgia tight, but again, this is between the hedges. This is Kirby and the boys smelling the SEC championship. He's a great coach, and he's probably the best coach to come out of that tree, and there's been a lot of them Saban's had. But I like this guy. He's built the program, Andy. He's built the program fast, and he's built a sustainable program. They're going to be good for 10 years. They have a program there, and I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I got Georgia in this one too. I think you're right. Georgia Tech obviously they upset Miami. They beat Florida State opening game of the year, but I think Georgia's got too much, and Georgia will win between the hedges. Next up, big battle in Tennessee, Knoxville to Nashville. The Vols traveling to take on the Commodores. Could be an interesting matchup here, Mark.
Tennessee is playing for an outside chance, Andy.
Yeah.
And Josh Heupel is a great coach. Nico is no longer a freshman. He's been through the wars. He's very talented. He's going to be an NFL player probably in 2-3 years. He's got some maturing to do. But I think the Vols get it done, and I really think they might have a shot. And I've called this in my playoff hunt, as you know. I had Tennessee in that playoff, so I think they might get in. So I'm calling Tennessee here.
I'm going Vols. Yeah, I think this game's going to be tight. I mean, LSU only beat Vandy by 7 last weekend. We know Vanderbilt beat Bama. They've had played a lot of other teams close. They're 6-5. But I just think, again, like you, with what's at stake, I think the Vols find a way to get it done, even on the road. So I'm going to go Tennessee as well. Next up, we talked about it, big implications for ACC, another one, but Cal traveling to SMU to take on the Stangs.
This is too much, Andy. It's in Dallas. They know what's at stake here. They're going to go from last to first. SMU Mustangs all the way. I wouldn't be shocked to see Craig James and Eric Dickerson in the stands on the sidelines.
Yeah.
The Pony Express.
That's right.
So
Pony Express. That's pulling one from the ages.
Yeah. So I like the Mustangs, my friend.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with you. I think SMU. I talked about earlier. I think, like I said, I think they'll be in the conference championship. I think they have a pretty good shot at winning the whole thing as well. We'll find out once the season fully closes here and who's really playing in the conference championships, and we'll make our picks for those. But I like SMU at home against the Bears. Next one, another huge game for these teams here. Kansas State traveling to Ames to take on the Cyclones, and for a while there, we weren't sure this game would matter. The way Kansas State was trending and the way Iowa State was trending before they got tripped up by Texas Tech. But lots on the line here, my friend.
Andy, these are my two teams I've been touting for the whole year.
I know.
Avery Johnson. I thought Kansas State could actually win this division and win this thing. And, Iowa State, I said in the beginning, they were very overrated. And now they have a chance to win. They win this, they win.
Yeah. Winning they're in.
And they're at home. So I got to take the Cyclones.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Shotgun Steve here, and I'm gonna back up what I said earlier. I think Iowa State does end up winning this. I think they'll find their way to the Big 12 title too. So Iowa State over Kansas State in this game, and be happy times at Ames, Iowa, at the end of this weekend. And Kansas State really fell off. We thought they'd be a lot better this year, but not so fast, I guess. Another one right after the other, Mark. I mean, just look at this lineup, man. You go all the way back to the Arizona State game, but every game we've talked about this week, from Arizona State to Miami to South Carolina and Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee at Vandy, Cal at SMU, KSU at all huge implications. And this next one, no different. Miami traveling up to the depths of New York State, and although it's in the former Carrier Dome, not sure what they call it now, but this will be an indoor game. Not many of those played anymore, but the Canes taking on the Cuse.
Andy, this is a huge game.
Yeah.
And if they falter here, Clemson finds themselves against SMU in the final.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an upset alert. I'm going with Syracuse.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Miami has not looked good the last 4 or 5 weeks, man. They're off. Their defense is horrible. Syracuse has got a great quarterback, your boy McCord, and I think they're gonna play spoiler here.
okay. Well, I like the call. But I'm going to go with the Canes. I think the Canes. They ended up winning. They have gotten off the slow starts, but they won convincingly this past weekend. I think I don't think they trip up on the road. I think this could be a game similar to when my boy McCord traveled west to take on the running Rebs, and what did he throw? 5 picks, I think, in that in
Yeah,
that game. Just completely fell on his face. So, or that was that the UNLV game, or was that the Pitt game? I think it was a Pitt game. It was
Pitt beat
Pitts,
them.
yes. Right. He went out and won against UNLV, but he fell on his face against Pittsburgh. I think something similar might happen here. Not as bad, but I think the Canes are victorious. And then, boy, got to sort it out between the Canes and Clemson, who gets to take on SMU. But we've picked SMU, we've picked Clemson, we've picked Miami. Somehow, I think the football gods, Mark, are going to sort this out for us, and I think one of us is going to be wrong on one or more of these games. But I'm sticking with my picks. Next one up, maybe less exciting. Big 12 matchup. No real implications here other than pride, but Kansas taking on Baylor. And Mark, I'm not sure how you pick against Rock Chalk Jayhawk after the last 3 weeks, my friend.
I don't know how you pick against them, but the party's over, Andy. The Baylor Bears end this run, and they win at home to end the season. Baylor has a good team. They've won a bunch of good games this year.
Yeah.
I think Kansas is playing above their head, over their head. They're on a high. They're coming down to earth. Baylor
Right.
Bears, my
Taking the
friend.
Bears. Well, I'm sticking on the Rock Chalk Jayhawk train, my friend. I think they'll continue to be victorious behind the running back. I think Jaden Daniels in that offense, and their defense isn't actually that bad either. They got a couple guys in the secondary that are pretty tough, and I think the Jayhawks are victorious down in Waco. Next game up, boy, this is an interesting one. I have to look at the schedule, but I'm not quite sure why. This must be on a different network, but
NBC,
Irish
man. Irish has
Irish
their own network, NBC.
traveling out to take on the Trojans of USC. But this game must be a later game
Is this a
next
night
week.
game or is this a 4 o'clock start?
Must be an afternoon game. Yep, 3:30 kickoff.
3:30 kickoff.
CBS, yeah, CBS. It's a Big Ten game, so CBS has got the Big Ten this year. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's why it's not on NBC for the Notre Dame.
yeah, that's right. It's not a home game for Notre Dame.
It doesn't matter whether it's a home game or not, Andy. USC is horrible this year. Notre Dame is going to take one of those spots. Remember, we talked about the other conference champions and that
Yeah.
they're worthy because they play in the conference and they've had these wars. Notre Dame doesn't have that, and they're going to get in because they're 10-1. They'll finish the season 11-1, and they're going to beat USC. So I like the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I love my Trojans, but I think the Fighting Irish has just tuned things up too much. They've worked harder, they've studied harder, and they've improved faster than the Trojans this year. And I think that'll be the same. Although I do think it's going to be a very close game. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout like we saw this past weekend against Army. I think it's going to stay tight. It's a tough environment, huge rivalry game. So I think regardless of the fact that USC doesn't have any playoff hopes on the line, every Trojan fan will love the opportunity to spoil the berth into the playoff for the Irish. So I think it's a very close game, but I think Notre Dame is the better team and they find a way to get it done. So next up, I referenced this earlier. This is the night game on NBC. Washington taking on Oregon. Washington traveling into Autzen. rematch of last year's Pac-12 championship and that phenomenal game midway through the season last year between these two juggernauts last year. But different story this year, my friend. And Ducks get it done at home, stay undefeated, finish the season undefeated, and they head into the Big Ten championship with a big 11-0 record.
Yeah, I think the Ducks kill them. I got the Ducks, Sandy.
Yeah. Well, this next one, next matchup just got interesting after this last weekend. After Bama drops one to Oklahoma and Auburn wins a thriller in 4 overtimes against A&M. But Auburn at Alabama. Does Auburn win 2 in a row? And did the Tide lose the last 2 games of the regular season?
I think the Bears going to have a bounce back game, man. And so does Milroe. He's not going to have his last game in Alabama end this way. So I think the Tide win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Alabama as well at home. I don't think they're gonna lose. I don't think they're gonna lose Auburn, although I do think it's going to be a competitive game. I don't think it's going to be the blowout game that everybody thought it probably would be a few weeks ago, or even at the beginning of the season. But I'm going to go with Bama. So that brings us, folks, to one of the most, if not the most storied rivalries in all of college football. Last year's national title team, the Wolverines from Michigan, from Ann Arbor, are traveling to the Horseshoe this coming weekend. 2 different teams taking the field this year than last year, and a lot on the line for Ohio State. But just like the SC fans would love to spoil the Fighting Irish this season and their run to the playoffs, the Wolverine fans would love to see the Wolverines march into the Horseshoe, deal Ryan Day his 4th year in a row of losses to Big Blue and cloud the playoff picture for the Buckeyes. However, we saw the Buckeyes last weekend, even after a bit of shuffling on that O-line and losing a key player like a center. And frankly, they didn't really miss a beat last weekend when they trounced the Hoosiers. And I think they take the Wolverines behind the woodshed, my friend. And the Buckeyes are victorious against Michigan, and Ryan Day can slay the demons from Ann Arbor.
Andy, this is the T-shirt game of the week. We've had Ohio State be the most T-shirt game of the week picks. I just want our viewers to know that. And it seemed like we've been playing a playoff game almost every week. I told you in the beginning, they've played 5 top 5 or top 10 teams in 2024. They've lost 1 to Oregon. So, my friends, Brutus will be victorious again. Ohio State, my friends.
Yeah, well, hopefully you're washing that T-shirt between the time you put it on. But we've had them on a lot, and we'll have to go back. I'll have to do this for the next show. We'll have to tally up the T-shirt games of the week records and figure out how things fared out. But well, there you have it, folks. That's a wrap on the first regular season of the Saturday Sensei. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. We are not going away. The exciting part of the season is right around the corner as we'll wrap up next Saturday's game, and then Mark and I will be back with what will look like. Hopefully we'll know at the time when we record next week what conference championships are going to look like. We should have a pretty good beat on who's going to be in downtown NYC on Mark's birthday there for the Heisman. So we'll have some Heisman talks, and then we'll be getting into the thick of playoff matchups, my friend. So anything you want to wrap up on the first regular season of the Sensei?
Andy, I think it was a great season. I'm so proud of myself to be able to keep pace with you. I didn't think it would be this close. And I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I think it's a labor of love, doing the homework, being able to have these debates with you. And I think it was a successful season. I'm looking forward to the playoffs as a whole nother season, and looking to make this podcast bigger and better for next year.
That's right. Well, Thanks for sticking with it. It's been a whirlwind week after week, and I've enjoyed it too. And we hope our listeners have enjoyed it even more. But the two of us love the game, and it's why we do it. Despite the fact we are getting the big 8 million, eight figure check every week. But no, in all seriousness aside, we're doing this out of, as Mark said, a labor of love and not getting a dime off of anything. And if we did get a dime, we'd probably redirect that towards something more worthy than the two of us. So we appreciate you sticking with us and having fun. That is a wrap, and we will see you all in a week. Good luck with the picks. See y'all.
Peace, everybody.